This is Luke with Top Bins with Twins here. I'm coming to you all to do a little special podcast here and talk with you all about building those FPL teams for the Game Week 1 deadline that is very quickly approaching. So hopefully this podcast assists you in putting together your team, sort through those final decisions that you might be trying to figure out at the moment, and ultimately just kind of clear your head after going through probably so many different iterations of the drafts and team setups that you put together. So let's use this time to work through those final questions we have and really try to drill down to that final version of the team that you're looking for. So one of the main questions that I think a lot of people are going to be asking this season is, do I need Haaland? Do I need Salah? That's going to come down to the individual manager. But I think whenever we look back on last season, we can get some insightful stats that can help us kind of decide whether or not we want to be going with Haaland or Salah. So as we've talked about previously on the pod, Haaland did underperform his XG last season. That's the first time in his professional career that he has done that. So when you look at the trend there, you would expect him perhaps to revert to the mean and maybe overperform his XG like he's done pretty much every season up until this point. With that being said, it's hard to say early on, especially with City assets not being in play. So we have Phil Foden coming back late, Kevin De Bruyne only getting, I think he subbed on the 92nd, 93rd minute in the Community Shield, didn't get a lot of time. And there's just a lot of other. Bernardo Silva is one of those two where he's a set player in the City lineup, and he's not going to be there as far as we know. We're not sure if he's going to be starting game week 1 whenever they play Chelsea away at Stamford Bridge, but it does still feel like Haaland does have routes to points, right? So something to keep an eye on whenever you're deciding whether or not you want to have Haaland. But as far as setting up your team to be successful for 38 game weeks, we at Top Bins with Twins think that Haaland is someone that it's going to be very hard to live without for the remaining, let's say, City doesn't put out their, top starting 11 for the first 2 game weeks. Well, after that, City is, we know, going to be one of the best attacking teams in the league. Last year, they averaged 2.5 goals per match. That was the most in the Premier League for the entire 2023-2024 season. And it's something that, Haaland is going to be a main part of them scoring goals. He's going to be in those positions where he's attacking the box. He's going to get the ball played to him in behind defensive lines if anyone is daring enough to play somewhat of a high line or mid block there. So we would advise to be very careful with going against Haaland. Now, whenever we circle to the other end of the spectrum and look at Salah, a little bit more concerned there with the selection of Salah, purely because with the new manager coming in for Liverpool, it seems like Slot really prefers to push his wingers wide, have them on the touchline, and really stretch the pitch, right? So our concern there is if Salah is going to be so wide out on the field, perhaps he's a little disconnected from the FPL returns. Now, we know Salah, he loves to tuck in, get onto his left foot, but there's a lot of uncertainty there, right? It seems, and within the FPL community, there's been a pretty big push as of late to veer towards going towards Diogo Jota, right? He put in a really good performance in their last preseason friendly, got a goal and an assist. I think everyone out there knows that Jota is someone who can put in a really, really good, performance. The question is, can he stay healthy? But whenever you're saving $5 million going from 12.5 at Salah's price point all the way down to the 7.5 that Jota's at, that gives you a lot of flexibility in the other pieces that you can bring into your team. So it's someone to keep in mind. We really think that Jota does a good job of giving you a piece of the Liverpool attack, but he does not cover Salah, right? That is a huge differentiation to make, right? Like, Jota is someone who can give you a piece of the Liverpool attack, but he's not going to cover Salah per se. Like, there's a very big debate or just conversation with the FPL community about covering someone with a cheaper player who hopefully gives you a portion of the returns, but we see Jota as something different. It's just a different pathway into Liverpool's attack. We're not trying to cover Salah with whatever Jota might give us. So keep that in mind whenever you're making that selection of bringing Jota in your team, that you are probably not going to be getting the exact same returns as Salah. But if Jota does play as that 9 and really is very attacking and able to stay on the pitch and be healthy for a good part of the season, he could be a great enabler for getting you into that Liverpool attack. With someone like Szoboszlai, who looks like he might be playing in the 10 role for Liverpool under Slot, we're a bit hesitant there because it seems like Harvey Elliott, someone who could compete for that position, and Szoboszlai could easily be pushed to a deeper role because he's an extremely talented player. But we do kind of worry that there could be some chopping and changing amongst the midfielders there. And you also have Curtis Jones pushing for a position. There's just a lot of unknowns there. So the safest thing overall to do, we think, is going to be to go Salah. But if you don't have the budget, then go Jota. And that's probably the second best choice, right? But Salah is the clear choice. What I will be doing for my team is I will most likely be going Jota instead of going Salah, just because of what that enables me to do with the rest of my team. So, hopefully that helps you all kind of make that decision. If we look back at Jota's stats for 2023, let me pull those up real fast. He had a really good run throughout the course of the season last year, but he once again struggled with injuries. So it is good for us to know whether or not he's going to be playing. If I could pull up the stats, that would be very helpful. Yeah, so whenever we look at his stats from last season, he played a total of, this is not wanting to work. Here we go. Okay, so last season he played a total of 21 matches, 10 goals and 3 assists. So good returns there. Averaging a return greater than a goal. About a goal every 2 games or so, which is pretty good. We'll take that, especially if he's going to be slotted in as that number 9. We know he's the preferred starter. Then his value definitely increases. So, something to keep an eye on there. But the next topic that I wanted to talk about a little bit here was Alexander Isak. Isak is priced at £8.5 million in the game for FPL, and he is highly selected in everyone's teams right now. Last I checked, he was around 50% ownership, which is very, very high. Currently, he sits at 57.5%. That's certainly going to end up higher than 60% by the final deadline on Friday. Think about it from this perspective. If you don't have Isak in your team and he goes for a brace against Southampton whenever they're at home, a lot of people are going to be captaining him as well. His effective ownership for anyone who does not know is factoring in the initial ownership, which can go up to 100%, right? Let's say every manager has him in their team, his ownership would be 100%. And then you combine that with the ownership that is factored in whenever you captain a player. So you can add on another up to 100% as well. So technically, effective ownership can go up to 200%, but that will never happen really. The closest we'll get to that is probably Haaland of last season, where he was around 92, 93% ownership. But with Isak, keep in mind that he is one of the primary captaincy choices for this upcoming week, and perhaps even the week after that. So he could really hurt your team if you don't have him in. Newcastle's run of fixtures does get a bit tougher after they kick off the season. So they start out with Southampton at home, they go Bournemouth away, and then Tottenham at home, Wolves away, Fulham away, and then Man City at home. So not the easiest run, but we do see a lot of goals there, right? I think Isak is going to be a good pick throughout the season, and the FPL community certainly agrees with that. The worry about Isak is that he has shown in the past that sometimes it's difficult for him to stay healthy. And if, say he suffers an injury game week 1, then a lot of managers will be moving away from him very quickly because there's a wealth of attacking forwards that we can look at here in FPL. It seems like the consistent approach for the front three as of now is generally going to be Haaland, Isak, and on top of that, of course, Solanke, right? And Solanke made the move from Bournemouth to Spurs. That's a move that's going to be really good for his career in the long run, we think. We think also he's going to be a great fit there with Postecoglou's system. So if you don't have Solanke in your team, definitely be thinking about that. But Isak overall, a very good asset to have, someone that is reliable. He's very creative on the ball, strikes the ball really well as well, but he's a great player, and he's on pin. So something to keep in your mind too, that you want to have a fair amount of pin takers in your team, right? Because that's a pathway to points that is very easy and it's reliable, right? So keep that in mind whenever you're building your team. Maybe do a little tally of how many pin takers you have in your team just to see where you're at with that. And I think the FPL website does have a list of pin takers, but with the new season coming around, like Aston Villa, for example, we're not entirely sure who's going to take pins for them. We assume it would be Ollie Watkins, but maybe someone else could step up to the penalty spot and take that in their first pin of the season. So keep an eye on that overall. But yeah, that's, I think, Isak, great player to have in your team. The next topic that I wanted to bring up was approaching how to set up your back line. In particular, we want to look at how to manage the Arsenal defense. Arsenal's defense is one of the best. It is the best in the league, right there. I don't think a lot of people can fight that. Arsenal's defense is reliably the best that the Premier League has to offer. Arteta's done a great job of setting up his team to where he has a great center back partnership there between Saliba playing right center back and Gabriel at left center back, and then Ben White on the right, and then kind of interchangeable left back spot. But you put Declan Rice in front of that midfield with another holding mid like Partey, or I know they're working to sign Moreno from Real Sociedad. That would be a great signing for them. He's a very creative player. But the defense itself is a great asset. What I see a lot of people struggling with is which portion of the Arsenal defense to target. Now, it is harder this season because last year Arsenal's defense was priced a lot cheaper. So we have to kind of make compromises this year. Ben White is priced at 6.5 million, and that's a lot for a defender, right? Even Trent Alexander-Arnold, who's only 7 million this year, who got a nice little price cut from the previous season, is really hard to squeeze into your team. The price point of 6.5 is a lot harder to get in as opposed to last year where we had some really great assets like Saka, Foden, Cole Palmer, probably the best price enabler in the history of the game there, that we really struggle with getting that 6.5 into our teams this year because of the premium cost of everyone. So it's going to be hard, but our preferred route to getting to the Arsenal defense, if you're looking for the best overall asset, we still think it's Ben White. He loves to get forward. He has that great connection with Saka and then Odegaard, who forms the triangles over on the right. But with the price point, it's kind of hard to get there. So we think that Saliba is probably the most locked-in center back they have. Bringing in Calafiori has made us question, to an extent, whether or not Gabriel could potentially be rotated in the future. There's no like-for-like substitution for Gabriel. So, for Saliba, I did not mean Gabriel. Saliba does not have a like-for-like replacement at right center back. It's hard to replace him, right? And Calafiori would not be a like-for-like replacement. It's just he offers a different versatility to that of Gabriel at left center back. So there's not as much competition for the right center back position. So we think that Saliba is probably the most locked in and rotation proof for all 38 weeks. So Saliba is our preferred choice if you're going to go for one of the center backs. And then on top of that, we think that Raya could also be a great way to get into the Arsenal defense. Priced at 5.5 million, he's the cheapest way to get to Arsenal's defense. And the only concern with him is you miss the goal threat. So with Gabriel and Saliba and Ben White as well, there's always the potential of a goal. For Ben White, that looks different than it does for Gabriel or Saliba. But then also with Ben White, you have the potential of an assist. So he's a good option. The center backs are good options, but for the best enabler, we think Raya would be the best avenue for you to get them into your team. So hopefully that's helpful. And we do. What do we expect from Arsenal's defense this year? We expect the exact same, if not better, because of the return of Timber, who unfortunately was not able to play for Arsenal last season due to injury, or the addition of Calafiori. Arsenal's defense is looking set to be primed to have a great season. Our one concern with the defense is we're a little worried about the fixtures that they start out with. With Arsenal's team, we can see, so they start out the season with Wolves at home. That's a good fixture. But then they go Villa away, Brighton at home, Tottenham away, and then Man City away. That's on the FDR, according to the FPL website. That's 3 fixtures of 4 or higher out of the first 5 fixtures. 3 out of 5 with red on the FDR does not make me overly excited to be going there. And that's the reason why I'm thinking twice about starting out with an Arsenal defender. Very easily what I could do, and keeping this in the back of my mind, you never know if this is what's going to happen or not. Because of injuries, because of players being rotated, there's just a lot up in the air at the moment at the start of the year. Maybe what I do is I decide to not go with Arsenal defense. And then I bring in an Arsenal defender whenever it circles back around to game week 6. I'll have 5 free transfers at that point, ideally, and that would be a luxury transfer that I'd love to make to where I could just plug and play them into my team. Arsenal do have a tough run from game week 9 to game week 11, where they have Liverpool, Newcastle, and Chelsea away. That could be a little tricky, and we expect some rotation around that point. UCL will start to come into the picture, so it's something to keep in mind, but maybe we avoid them for the initial portion of the season and then go from there. So food for thought, but I think a lot of teams will have at least one Arsenal defender, and some managers going with the double Arsenal defense. So it could be a good way to hedge, maybe, perhaps. The next topic that I kind of want to, drill into a little bit here is Nkunku, priced at 6.5 million, versus Eze, priced at 7 million. It's a topic that I think a lot of people are struggling with at the moment because Cole Palmer, priced at 10.5 million, would be a great asset to have in our teams, but the price is a lot, especially with the corresponding increase in price for a lot of other players as well. So a lot of people are trying to hedge by going in Nkunku and get a path into the Chelsea attack. With this issue, though, I think I myself have really been dissuaded from this because I'm not overly convinced by Chelsea at the moment. I think that Maresca is going to be a good manager for them, but even he has said it's going to take time for his players to learn to play the system, buy into the system, and until you have buy-in from the players, you can't expect good results. I'm a bit worried about Chelsea, especially at the start of the year, because we don't know what to expect. I would say Nkunku is probably an avoid for me personally because of those reasons that I just stated. But if you feel committed that Chelsea are going to have a good start to the season, our recommendation would go Nkunku instead of Cole Palmer. Cole Palmer will be on penalties, but 10.5 million is a lot to be putting on one player, especially when we're not sure what role he's going to be playing in the new system under Maresca. Keep an eye on that. And, we could very easily end up with Cole Palmer being 11.5 million, the best player in the game again. But for now, with the uncertainty, I think I'm probably going to avoid for the time being. And that brings us to Eze. I think Eze is an excellent choice to have in your team. He's someone that he will be the talisman at Crystal Palace. He is the person they're going to be building their attack around because of how creative, how effective. And really, the one question that we have with Eze is he going to be able to be on the pitch? There have also been some rumors that perhaps he's looking at a transfer out, going to, his name's been thrown around with Man City. I've seen a little bit of Arsenal. We're not quite sure where that's going to end up. But if Eze stays at Crystal Palace, priced at 7 mil, we are assuming he's taking penalties. That is my assumption. I've looked through some of the numbers. It seems like sometimes they would rotate between Elise, Eze, and Mateta. But when Mateta was taking penalties, it seemed like Elise and Eze weren't on the pitch. So, yeah, Eze seems like the go-to man for Palace. And at 7 million, he enables you to do a lot more in your team, right? So as someone who is very much so in the forefront of my thoughts, at the moment, I think that in that price range of like 6.5 to about 7.5, there's a lot of really good options. So you've got Anthony Gordon, you've got Eze, you've got Nkuku, you've got Jota, you've got the forced assets if you're so inclined to go there. Even Martinelli, perhaps at 7 million, is someone who we should all keep an eye on, because if we get that Martinelli from 2 seasons ago, man, wow, he would be a great asset to have at 7 million, just giving you that option to get into the Arsenal attack. But then again, we're worried about rotation, right? So we need some consistency and some form to allow us to be willing to go there in the first place. So it's something to keep an eye on with Martinelli. I do like him to an extent, but at 7 million, I would rather have Eze, who I like Crystal Palace's fixtures. I love what Glasner's doing for Palace and how he has them playing really exciting football. I like the signings that Palace has made. I think Eze will have a good support system. And ultimately, I think Eze is an incredible player. He's someone that immediately passes the eye test. He glides on the pitch. He's a top player. As I said, though, the main concern is, will he be able to stay on the pitch? Let's hope so, because if he does, I think Palace are in for a great year. Not quite as great as it would have been if Elise would have stayed, where they could have potentially been playing for European football, which would have been quite the sight, and great for our FPL teams as well. But nevertheless, we persevere. The other thing that I've been seeing a lot within the FPL community as of late is it seems like that a lot of people have been thinking about going to Kwanzaa, who is potentially going to be the other center back starting alongside Virgil van Dijk. Kwanzaa's priced, it's 4.5 million in the game, and he offers a really cheap option for us to get to the Liverpool attack. I do see the thought process here. I get that you're saving 2.5 million if you go from Trent to Kwanzaa. But part of the appeal of Trent is we know he's on set pieces. We know he's going to take any dangerous free kicks where he could potentially put one in the upper corner. And we know Trent has an attacking potential even when it's not down to set pieces, right? He loves to push forward a little bit, although he was staying a little bit deeper in their last friendly. The attacking potential there, with Liverpool looking to potentially keep more clean sheets this season, is something that I think is really worthwhile by sticking with Trent at the 7 million price range. I think Kwanzaa is a good option if you need someone in the 4.5 to 4 range. But if you can get up to Trent, that would be my personal preference. I think that Trent offers the output and, attacking threat to really potentially, give you the value for what you're paying for at 7 million. So that's also, whenever we're looking at value for defenders, this is a good segue to talk about Gvardiol, the Man City defender who's currently sitting at 6 million in the game. He had an incredible run last season near the end where he went on an absolute tear with goals, assists, an absolute firecracker in the UCL, which against Real Madrid, which does not count for FPL points, but it kind of shows that Gvardiol is someone who has that attacking skill set, but a lot of people didn't see it initially, right? He is creative with the ball. He has really good vision as well. And I think, personally, this is just my, out of the research that I've done, in the preseason, Gvardiol was playing as a center back, kind of more so as that left center back. And a lot of this was being done without, the good majority of Man City players being back. What I think is happening here, right, is that Gvardiol had to tuck in more defensive responsibilities because, Rico Lewis is playing right back. He likes to invert into the midfield, go a little bit higher up the pitch. With Rico Lewis playing at right back, I think Pep was very practical and said, okay, I need you to drop deeper. It is what it is. During the season, you're going to be attacking. Don't worry about it. So that's what my overall hypothesis is here. I think that Gvardiol's still going to be playing higher up the pitch on the left side. I don't know if he'll exactly be playing a left winger role like we saw at times of last year, but he's going to push forward, especially because Kyle Walker will be back. When you have Kyle Walker playing right back, he tends to play more of a deeper role at times, but he also offers the capability to cover more ground in behind that someone like Rico Lewis just doesn't have the pace. So with that in mind, right, like if you have Kyle Walker covering behind, Gvardiol's still going to have that agency to be able to push up the left side of the pitch and provide attacking returns on top of hopefully City keeping more clean sheets this season for us, City defensive owners who, have been burnt many, many times. I don't see many people going with Ederson in their team this season. And that's because everyone has experienced that pain of Ederson conceding, a goal off of a total XG of 0.01, right? Something marginal that shouldn't happen, but it's just after you get burned one too many times, you just don't want to go back there. So that's why Gvardiol offers a really good opportunity to get a portion of the City defense with maybe some clean sheets in their future. But on top of that, you get his attacking potential. So if you're kind of, wondering what I'm kind of advocating for here overall across the defensive line, I think that having a combination of Liverpool, Arsenal, Man City, and then some 4.5 enablers is probably going to be the most optimal combination of defenders overall throughout the season. And, I'll leave that up to you all to decide what 4.5 defenders you would think about or who you want to have in your team, but some that kind of come quickly to mind. Lewis Hall at Newcastle, he's 4.5 million. I think Mikalenko with Everton at 4.5 has been someone who's been really popular within the community. Another player, our baby eagle, Anthony Robinson with Fulham at 4.5 million. Fulham have a great run of fixtures. He's someone that I think everyone has been looking at. Seems to be becoming a little bit out of favor. Weirdly, within the FPL community, there are these trends and moving players in, moving players out. Great example of that, we see Son moving out of teams now because of Solanke's move to Spurs. Weirdly enough, people want to save the 2.5 million. I don't know why they would want to do that. Of course, sarcastic there. Yes, saving 2.5 million for what could be one of the best strikers in the game and taking Son out does make a lot of sense. That's why we've kind of come to this template front three of Haaland, Isak, and Son. But getting back to Anthony Robinson, at 4.5 million, he offers a really good attacking threat for a Fulham team that have really nice fixtures, and they've looked, pretty good in the preseason. It's been refreshing to see ESR have a new shot at life with Fulham. He's already returned 2 goals, and his ownership has skyrocketed. He's not even a differential anymore at this point. I think he's above 10% ownership, which is pretty crazy, but good to see too, right? Hopefully ESR does bring in the returns for FPL managers as he continues this new journey at Fulham. Other 4.5 million defenders that I would consider, main one, is Leif Davis with Ipswich. He is really going under the radar right now. He is priced at 4.5 million. Last season in the championship, he had a great year. I believe it was something crazy like 2 goals and 18 assists. That is crazy goal contributions for a defender to have an FPL. So someone who I think we should all somewhat be considering. Ipswich do start out the season pretty difficultly with having Liverpool at home and then Man City away at the Etihad. But then from game week 3 all the way to game week 10, and even after that, you could even go game week 3 all the way to game week 16. They have a really nice run of green fixtures on the FDR. 4.5 million, he's someone that I would encourage you all to look at, if nothing else. On top of that, I think that Crystal Palace assets are really good. There is a slight price tag with Munoz. He's 5 million in the game, but he does have the potential of very high attacking threat with this Crystal Palace side in their preseason friendly. He was pushing up in that right wing channel like he was a right winger. It was pretty crazy. So if he's in those positions he was in their preseason friendly, he's going to be one of the best attacking defensive threats in the game. So someone to keep an eye on there. Outside of that, I think there are some other really good enablers. A lot of people like I know who's a 4.5 million defender for Nottingham Forest. I myself, as you all have heard previously on the podcast, I do not want to go there with Nottingham Forest assets. I don't trust them. I think that while those fixtures are green on the FDR, I think the teams that Forest are playing are going to be better, and I don't expect any big returns from Forest players. So that's my personal opinion. Could easily be wrong. Maybe Nuno's cooking up something there that I'm not quite aware of, but it's just I don't trust them till I see it at this point, especially with how poor they were at parts of last season. So Forest is an avoid for me, but if you are so inclined, I wish you the best of luck with that pick. Other 4.5 mil defenders, as we mentioned earlier in the podcast, Kwanzaa is someone who's very interesting. He really has the potential to be a great enabler for a lot of teams. He's someone that I think could be a great asset to have. I'm just going to make sure I'm covering all the options here at 4.5. Someone else that's a little popular, we've got Martinez with Manchester United. Not sold on Manchester United at this point in the season. They do have a pretty good run to start out the year. They go Fulham at home, Brighton away, Liverpool at home, and then Southampton away for the first 4. So that's a pretty decent run. But with Ten Hag still being in control at the moment, I believe that it's going to be up and down, right? United are probably going to have some good fixtures. They're going to look good for a couple of matches, and then that could fall off, especially with these injuries to the new signings they've made. So I would just, for me, United's a wait and see. Perhaps we go there a little bit later in the season, but I am not feeling like it's something that I'm going to be, committing to in my Game Week 1 team. Outside of that, I think we've pretty much covered all the good 4.5 million defenders. So that should probably do it for this podcast. I just want to thank you all for joining for this very short bridge podcast. Sorry it's a little bit different than our normal setup, but with the Game Week 1 deadline approaching, we just wanted to get something out so you guys could hear from us again, touch base, and hopefully this helps you to, kind of make those final decisions in your team, decide where you want to go with your players, and feel confident in that Game Week 1 team, right? As we always say here on the podcast, the most important thing about FPL is that we're having fun with it, that it's exciting, and really that it's something that, is, as Paul always says, like, keep in mind it's a game, and there's only so much that we can get out of it, right? We do absolutely love it and love putting our time into FPL. But there's a healthy moderation, just like anything else. So, as always, if you all have any questions, any follow-up thoughts, please feel free to reach out to us. The best place to do that is going to be on Twitter, or, now known as X. Our handle there is TopBinTwins, and feel free to reach out anytime. But thank you all for joining for this podcast, and we hope to hear from you soon. Thanks, everyone.